Hey, Raindrops. On today's episode of Reality with the King, I am back with Eboni K. Williams, the legal, eagle, easy expert, all the things. She has been such a source of information for us. And listen, this trial we are going to talk about, in addition to the verdict that was reached, is a pop culture sensation because it involves a hip hop sensation and a pop star and all the things by the name of Cardi B. And Eboni is going to break down the case with us because this has been like 8 years in the making, or 7 years maybe.
Well, yeah, I think it was the assault happened in 2020, I think, or 2019, and then she filed in 2020, and now we finally, 5-6 years later, we finally have a judgment.
Which is insane. So I did not know Cardi even had to go to trial for something like this. So, Eboni, can you explain to us exactly what happened? Because one thing I would like to say is this: Cardi B was on trial for an incident that occurred in 2018. She was accused of assaulting a security guard. And this case, like we said, finally happened 7 years later. Eboni, what are the details, honey?
So much to go into. So I want to start with the framing of what this trial was and what it wasn't, Carlos. So let's be clear, Raindrops. This was not a criminal trial. There was nothing criminal at stake. Okay, so this was the police officers weren't involved. None of that. This is what we call a civil matter. Okay, so this goes back to all my legal eagles, law students, paralegals, legal assistants. This is a torts claim. Okay, which is a class we take. Don't you just love going to law school with Eboni K. Williams?
You know I'm obsessed with you. So yes, actually.
This is just in time for back to school, Carlos.
Look at my outfit.
I would say you got your little back to school polo on.
Yes.
We're not going to do this today. So yes, so this is a tort, which we learn about our very first year of law school. Torts can also be crimes. So this is where it could be confusing, right? So when you normally hear assault and battery, we normally think of the criminal justice system, right? We think about somebody getting arrested and potentially going to jail or probation for committing an assault or battery, a harmful touching of another, right? But then there's a tort version of all of those same things, Carlos. So we know in this case, Cardi was on trial for allegations that she committed torts, which are civil wrongs. That's what a tort is, a civil wrong. They can include, and did in this case include, assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, also negligence, and all kinds of things. And so the judge or jury in this matter, in this case it was a jury, gets to decide. There's not a guilt or innocence. That's something else I want to clear up. So she was never going to be found guilty, and she was never going to be found not guilty, because that doesn't apply to civil cases. You are either found liable or not liable. This is important difference, Carlos, because it's a different burden of proof. When we're talking about criminal matters where somebody must be found guilty, I know you know this, the standard of proof is what? Beyond a reasonable doubt. Yes. So that means it needs to be proven at a very high likelihood, more reasonable than not, that you absolutely, in fact, not more reasonable than not, excuse me, I misspoke, Raindrops, beyond a reasonable doubt. So you have to be so thought to be guilty by the evidence, by the testimony, by the forensics, that no reasonable doubt can exist to your guilt, period. That's the bar. And it's that high, Carlos, because people's lives are on the line. Jail, execution in some states, that's a high bar. Totally different standard of proof in a civil matter. You only have to be believed to be responsible for the things you're accused of. We call it 51%. More reasonable than not. More probable than not that you did it. So that's why a lot of times, Raindrops, you'll see people bring a civil case instead of a criminal case, right? Because they could be argued, Madam Security Guard, if you were so injured and so distressed and so traumatized by this so-called scar and fingernail cut or what have you, why not call the cops? Why not have Cardi arrested? Why not, pursue it in a criminal court? That's what oftentimes people say, right? oftentimes, Carlos, it's not pursued criminally because there's not enough evidence. There's not enough to reach that high burden of proof of beyond a reasonable doubt. So you bring that burden of proof down to more probable than not, and we find ourselves in civil court. Does that make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense. Wow, because the thing that was so confusing to me, which is why I'm glad you cleared it up, is although the former security guard alleged that Cardi B spat on her, scratched her nose with a fingernail during a verbal altercation, this wasn't a criminal trial. So your breakdown is great because we're now able to really understand exactly why this case was even happening. So the woman, the former security guard, she decided, like you said, to sue Cardi B for this alleged altercation, not criminal but civil.
Mm-hmm.
She sued her for 24 million. Okay. She sued her for $24 million for, again, raindrops, for allegedly for Cardi allegedly spitting on her, scratching her nose with a fingernail. Talk to us about this and why would any lawyer agree to take on a case of this magnitude or lack thereof magnitude, but also to say $24 million seems like the right number for this?
It's laughable, right? So I have to say, for me, and this is my actual legal opinion here, Carlos, not my personal opinion, I think this case was over before it started because of that number. Knowing no other facts, right? Knowing no other facts, whether there's going to be somebody to testify to them seeing Cardi do this or not do that, knowing no other facts, the minute you have the audacity and really the willful kind of bad intention as an attorney to file this on behalf of your client in civil court, and the most egregious harm you can cite is the being spit upon and a 3-inch fingernail laceration, and you talking about 24 million, you've undermined your own credibility just in the filing of the complaint. See what I'm saying? Now, let me tell you how it could have gone different. I'm not saying Cardi would have been found liable or that she should have been. I'm just saying how it could have played out with more of an opportunity for the plaintiff here, the security guard, to have a better outcome that she was seeking. You, and I believe this is true in the state of Georgia, in most states, when you file a lawsuit like this, Carlos, you do need to put some number on the table. They normally require you to put some number. You can't just say whatever the jury thinks. But you can do it in a much less aggressive way. You can say, and the plaintiff seeks in excess of $10,000 of damages. And that can be up to millions, but we're putting in a minimum threshold of $10,000. A minimum threshold of $1,000. I mean, you see what I'm saying? And because that threshold dictates what type of court you might be in. So I think had this case been filed, this lawsuit been filed at the onset, Carlos, saying same complaint, same facts, same allegations, and the relief we seek, Your Honor, is in excess of $10,000. Let us have our day in court. Now I'm willing to hear you out, and I'm willing to believe that there could be some truthfulness to what you're going to put before this court. But when you come in this court talking about a spat upon and a 3-inch nail laceration, you talk about $24 million, it reads like you're operating in bad faith from day one. It reads, it's giving scam, it's giving extortion, it's giving payday, and it's giving bad faith again, and that's a legal term. It's giving that you, the client, you and your client are operating in bad faith. And I'm already looking at all the facts and evidence that you're putting before me from that lens. That landing? Yeah.
Baby. It's a jet blue holiday. Oh,
right.
What the kids say, jet to holiday. No, because it makes so much sense. So what Eboni is saying is, on her legal opinion, the fact that due to an alleged 3-inch laceration from Cardi's nails that allegedly happened, and to say that it was worth 24 million is interesting too, because what the security guard said under oath is that this incident traumatized her and that it required a cosmetic procedure because of the scarring from the alleged assault. She also said that she lost her job over the incident as well. What is so fascinating about that is, let's just say, for the sake of an argument, right? Let's say this did happen. Let's say that someone of Cardi B stature, who is worth millions and millions and millions of dollars, did actually make contact with anybody, did actually spit on somebody, did actually, scratch their face with the nail. Based on your legal expertise, if this really did happen, is $24 million still an amount that should be awarded to somebody dealing with that plus a cosmetic procedure?
So here's the good news, Carlos. We don't even have to speculate about it. The answer is, of course, that's totally irrational. And we have a mechanism in the law that allows for us to determine what is rational. I love this. I love doing this with you. It is just so nostalgic for me to go back into my early tutelage as a young legal scholar and realize when I learned these things for the first time. Seriously. So again, first year law school, we get told about the concept of a quantum assessment of damages. Okay. There are books. There are now, I'm talking about, that's how I dated myself, talking about books.
They get electronic documents, honey.
You're over 40, baby. Oh, child. But yes, now there are electronic documents and access points and all kinds of things where you can look this up and say, hey, and there are all kinds of things that we take into consideration, Carlos King, we put on the table and we come up with a reasonable figure. They include the following: the actual medical bills. So like you say, let's say this actually happened. Let's say which means you're going to have a literal receipt, ma'am, of what the cosmetic surgeon cost, of what your primary care visits cost, of what your medications cost. You see what I'm saying? All of that. We're going to add all your bandages and dressings, your Neosporin shit. I don't know. Add it all up. Put it all on the table, Carlos. Now this is the nickel and dime lawyer in me coming out, girl. But you got a Band-Aid, bitch? Put it on the table. Skin flesh color, that's more expensive. Put it on the tab. Okay? So that's...
Eboni, I can't.
So we want
I have the Band-Aid and the Fenty Beauty skin discoloration makeup, child. Go ahead, boo.
So that's one column of expense, right? The actual medical expenses. Now let's say you did lose your job behind this. Okay, ma'am, respectfully, let's go on the high end. You're doing private security for an upscale building of this magnitude. Let's just say she made $225 a year. Let's just say that. Okay, so we're gonna put that on the tab. Then let's say you're traumatized. Let's say you got to see a therapist for more frequent basis. We're gonna run that up. At best, $350,000, $400,000. At best. So now that you're talking about anything over $500,000, and by the way, just so you know, when we come up with these numbers, Carlos, we add everything we can conceive of. That's why I'm being funny, but I'm being this is really how it goes. You stretch the limits of possibility to bring all future medical. Let's say the scar gets infected and you got to cut the thing back up. So you put all that. Yeah, this is what we do in the war room, Carlos. Those of us lawyers, go back to Scandal. You know how they had the war room with the gladiators? Yes. Same thing. Every case, we handle this way. A good lawyer, you conceive of the biggest number you can conceive of, and then you multiply it by 3. Why? 3 for the damages themselves. The third I'm going to take as the lawyer, and then the third for the taxes, because you're still going to get taxed on any settlement that you get or any damages that you receive. You get it's taxable income. Not 9 out of 10 times. Oh yes. Yeah, the raindrops learning today, baby. Okay, so
yeah. But to stop you there, because I'm just so fascinated by this. The lawyer, whatever the judgment is for the amount, at the end of the day, just so we know for future references, the attorney, okay, does the law firm get a third, or the attorney, him or herself, get the third of
the firm, which could just be if it's the law offices of Eboni K. Williams, Eboni K. Williams gets that third. If it's Carlos King and Associates, and you've got associates, the firm gets the third, and then you pay, because that's how the legal partnership works. But the point is, 1/3 of whatever the plaintiff gets goes to legal fees, period. Because that's the nature of a standard contingency agreement. 1/3 goes to lawyers, 1/3 goes to Uncle Sam, and the client gets what's left. And you want to make sure that number is high enough, Carlos, to where there can be some real compensation. That's how we're thinking of this. So again, I just put everything from the Neosporin to the surgery to the lost wages to the therapy bills. I put it all on the table, and I couldn't get to more than 300,000-400,000.
Yeah.
And then you multiply it times the 3, and again, at best, you're asking for $1 million, maybe $1.25 million at best. So when you start talking about $24 million for even the most astronomical expansion of damages, you're operating in bad faith from a legal perspective.
Yeah. No. Makes a lot of sense, because one of the things that I did want to talk to you about was the sort of behavior from the prosecution. The lawyer who cross-examined Cardi B on the stand. A lot of people felt that his behavior as a lawyer was very negative. Some will say unprofessional, allegedly. Some people have said it was inappropriate. He asked her a series of questions about, whether or not the woman in question who allegedly got assaulted, about how big she was. He asked Cardi B about her race. He asked Cardi B whether or not she's wearing a wig today. Her hair was short yesterday. It seemed like this was a Saturday Night Live parody on Scandal, right? It didn't seem believable. And Cardi B, who's a personality, gave the audience and the lawyer what he wanted, which was memes, reactions, and everything else. What is your take on the behavior of this lawyer? Is this somebody that you think knew that he had a tough case to present?
So a few things. Number one, Cardi is a pro. And I'm talking to the king of reality TV. And least any of us forget, before she was a Grammy Award-winning artist, she was a reality TV star. Which means, and she was a brilliant one at that, which means she is a what? Expert storyteller, right? And so much of what we do in the courtroom, Carlos, so much of who wins and loses in the court of law is about who tells a better story. Not saying it should be that way. I'm saying that is what it is. And so I think that this was an attorney who failed to do his due diligence. And I mean that both in the legal and cultural sense. Didn't know who he was dealing with. Cardi is as media trained, as media savvy. And all of this is just what the court of law is in many ways, Carlos King, is just an amplification or even a condensation rather of public opinion, of the court of public opinion. So you just scale that down on an intimate level and you've got an actual court of law. Cardi is not going to be any less effective on that stage, pun intended, than she's going to be as effective when the cameras are up for Love and Hip Hop, than when the cameras are up for the grant. Same skill set. This case, this trial called on the same skill set that Cardi B has been perfecting from her YouTube days. So we're talking about 20 years. See what I'm saying? So I think this attorney was entirely out of his league, failed to properly educate himself on the savvy and the skill set and the brilliance of what this defense witness was going to bring to this cross. and ended up doing themselves tremendous disfavor. Like you said, only made themselves as the attorney look unprepared, inadequate, caught off guard, and kind of having to stand in your own shit. You made a shit sandwich that you intended to deliver to the defendant, Cardi B, and your ass had to eat it. That's what happened in this trial, from my opinion. And one of the first things we learned in law school, Carlos King, whether you're on direct exam, meaning you're asking the questions first, or you're on cross exam, as we saw with Cardi and this lawyer, never, ever in your life ask a question you don't already know the answer to.
I even knew that watching Scandal, Law and Order, LA Law. Like, sorry, I'm screaming, but yeah.
No, it's true, because it's triggering what you know, what is culturally ingrained in us to know about how these trial lawyer roles go. And so you forgot the first thing must be first, Carlos. And you forgot the first thing. Never, and that's why you wound up surprising yourself. So no, I think Cardi gets all the credit here. She was absolutely brilliant on that witness stand. All of it. Yeah. It was all brilliant. And I also just kind of want to say substantively, she really came from a strong argument point, Cardi, I'm saying, because I and any woman on that jury, mostly, especially any that have carried and delivered a baby, know just how vulnerable and delicate that moment is. Bless you, baby Liberty. They know how delicate and vulnerable that moment is, Carlos, when you are pregnant with your first child, especially your first child, any child, but your first child, as Cardi was in 2018. You're a huge celebrity, you're a global phenomenon. So you do what you're supposed to do, which is exercise all of your assets of protection and privacy. The medical facility cooperates with you, shuts the whole place down so you could have that privacy and respect the tenderness of your early trimesters of pregnancy, which we all know, Carlos King, until that baby is at least, I want to say it's 27 weeks, maybe it's 22 weeks, but closer to 27 weeks, what we call having viability of life outside of the uterus. I can't explain to you how delicate that moment feels as somebody who's carrying their child, because I remember it like it was yesterday. And I am, as the great Nene Leak says, known, not necessarily famous, but I am known. Thank you, Nene. So as a known,
I got time for this. Oh my God.
Shout out to Miss Leaks. I appreciate being known. For some people, I'm serious, child. So anyway, as somebody known, Carlos, stay with me now. When I was in my early stages of pregnancy, I certainly wasn't going to have the hospital or the facility shut down for me, but I, had my little baseball cap on, tried to keep it cute, low key, because, 12, 13 weeks pregnant, keep it cute. Of course, my pregnancy wasn't known until I was about to pop, and that was by design. You and I discussed this. You were one of the first people to know I was with child. Child, I took my little black ass in my OB's office trying to be incognito. Here comes somebody. Ebony, you on the Breakfast Club. And then they walked away and then turned around and said, congratulations. Now, it was sweet, but when I tell you my heart sank.
My heart sank just now, and I'm not pregnant. Oh my God.
Yeah, because now people can know. Now the information is not contained. Now anybody could do anything with it. And even if nobody even means you any ill will, like the security guard said, oh, I just got excited and I did it. Ain't nobody ask you all that. What you need to know is that it's still a violation. It's still a violation. And it's a violation such that it becomes totally understandable and reasonable that Cardi would have a reaction to that would be hostile. So before we get to did she lay her hands on the woman or not? Did she actually spit and make physical contact with the woman or not? The premise is set up, Carlos, so that Cardi in this circumstance is extraordinarily sympathetic.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and listen, everything you're saying makes a lot of sense. It was a 4-day trial. The
Mhm.
jury the jury deliberated for less than 1 hour.
Which
Okay.
lets us know exactly what type of time they were on.
That was obvious what the outcome was going to be. But Ebony, question for you. While the deliberation was happening, Cardi B went outside and she was confronted by a paparazzo who
Mhm.
asked her, "Look, you're pregnant. Is the baby offset? Is it Stefan? What's going on?" Cardi B took a marker that was from somebody and threw it at this paparazzo and
Mhm.
said, "Respect women." Pretty much, gave him, some tongue lashing and went
Mhm.
about her business. A lot of people were like, "Cardi B, you are on trial for assault. Why would you do this?"
Mhm.
Talk to me about that because the prosecutor tried to tell the judge what happened outside and the judge wasn't here for it. But
Mhm.
it did raise a question, Ebony K. Williams, and I did want to ask you,
Mhm.
if you were Cardi's client
Mhm.
and you saw her do that,
Mhm.
would that make you nervous in the moment?
So, a few things. If I were Cardi's attorney, I would advise my beloved client, Miss Cardi B, to not throw things and let's keep our hands to ourselves. And let's not even, to the point you're alluding to, Carlos, give the impression that we even have violent tendencies. But people are human, and Cardi gets the benefit of being so well known, uh, to where people generally can put in context her reactiveness. So if you or I, Carlos, were somewhere and we threw a pin at somebody, I think that would raise eyebrows because people don't know us necessarily to be hyper reactive. They don't have a context for us in that way. So that would be like, wow, if you were bold enough to throw a pin into a crowd of folks with the cameras running, what are you like behind closed doors? Cardi gets the
Yeah.
benefit of us having a pretty damn good idea as to what she might be like in a more closed door setting. She is impulsive. She is reactive. So do you see what I'm saying? It's a nuanced point, but I think it's an important one that
Mhm.
she actually gets. I would be less concerned if Cardi B, as my client, did that than I would be concerned if you or I did that.
I do want to ask you this. So Cardi B, after she was found not liable for this particular situation, she did go back outside and spoke about what happened. One of the things she said that I do want to talk to you about because although you're not famous, you are known.
We love you, Nene. I
Ebony
really.
has the best. I really listen. I'm gonna sidetrack a little bit. I really hope, and I know you guys have because y'all told me personally. But I
Mhm.
love the fact that y'all get to see my friend Ebony in her glory because she has a sense of humor. She actually is like I know y'all. I know some of y'all think she's so serious, whatever. Ebony is a hoot. So the fact that I get to show my friend in this
Yeah.
light means the world to me because she is funny AF to me. But okay.
Okay. Okay.
Cardi B, after she was found not liable, she thanked her supporters. She called the lawsuit frivolous, but she also said this, and you are a public figure, and I want to get your thoughts on this. You are famous and you are a lawyer.
Mhm.
Cardi B emphasized that she would not settle with anybody because she's a celebrity, and she warned people against filing frivolous lawsuits against them, noting that she works hard for her money and that she will countersue if this happens again. What are your thoughts on that? Because some celebrities do feel like because I'm famous,
Mhm.
I for all intents and purposes, I have some money that people are going to file frivolous lawsuits
Mhm.
that has no bearings, no truth in it, just because they want a payday. Do you think countersuing would scare these people away?
Yes. And also, first of all, I love that Cardi said this. I love that she said this, and I love that she said this in this moment, immediately following this verdict that was so favorable to her. And let's be clear, Cardi has some momentum behind fuck around and find out with Cardi B, baby, when it comes to this court thing. You better ask Tasha K. very seriously. And she is doing what most celebrities in her position, Carlos King, will not do, which is make the time. Cardi said, period, dot. I'm going to make the time to play exactly the games y'all want to play. Meaning I'm going to come to court. I'm going to put on my wig, my outfit. I'm going to raise my hand on the Bible. I'm going to testify. I'm going to do the thing that y'all are counting on me not doing, which is have legal follow through. Same thing with Tasha K. All this, most people would have got that verdict, multi-million-dollar verdict around Tasha K owing her, and went on with their business. Not Cardi. Cardi's where's the updated hearing so we can find out her current financial status, and she's on it like clockwork every 6 months because she actually intends to collect. This sends a message that Cardi is not the one to be played with, and she said it flat out. We saw similar messaging from Jay-Z with Busby, with, when he said, not only am I not going to settle, I'm actually going to come for you and your ability to practice law in these cases. So I think whether it's a countersuit, whether it is challenging the other side's lawyers around their credibility to practice, I think that type of punitive counteraction is very important because it sends a message, Carlos, that they are not sitting ducks to just wait and be targeted for payouts, and I think it's very important. I respect it, like Cardi said, and whether she works hard for it or not, it's her money, period. It's her money, period. People are not entitled to it, contrary to popular belief. And as long as enough celebrities, Carlos, are willing to not make the time to go to court, not make the time to file the counterclaim, not make the time to put on their clothes and go down to the courthouse and testify in their own defense on their own behalf. And they feel that it is easier and quicker to just write the check, which is their prerogative. You will continue to see a cycle of civilians that see that as a ripe opportunity for a quick payday. And some will succeed. But what Cardi B said clearly and loudly today is that she will not be the ATM. So you're going to have to get somebody else to do it because Cardi B is not in the business of doing quick, fast, easy paydays. And I respect her greatly for it.
Last question for you, Eboni. What advice do you give public figures, celebrities, or a person who has means when they are confronted with a situation where they feel like they may have to defend themselves, but also do not want to be in a situation where they can get sued and what some people, again, are calling a frivolous case? What advice do you give people? Should they ignore and move on? Should they have bodyguards with them? What do you think?
This is a tough call. It's a personal call, right? If you can afford the bodyguard situation, I think that takes care of a lot of it. Had Cardi had her own personal security with her that day, I'm certain that person would have been able to fend off this security woman and her claims, and maybe wouldn't have gotten to this. But two things to that point, though.
Maybe Liberty agrees with you, Mama.
She got something to say. Don't she good in this? She's like, maybe I want to be a security guard. I don't know, child. Wait on it. But here's where I'm careful, Carlos, about advocating for that as the answer. So that is an extraordinarily expensive endeavor to constantly have paid security with you 24/7 around the clock. I don't care who you are. And secondly, I think that sets a precedent that if you're wealthy and or famous, that you somehow must bear the constant burden of never being able to have any type of expectation of privacy. And I simply don't believe that. I simply don't believe that, Carlos. I get that people are going to be interested in your life. That is part of the price that any of us pay that do our lives in a public fashion. But I don't believe that the price has to be so exorbitantly high simply because one has a talent or a gift or something to offer to the public that now you must sacrifice any sense of autonomy and ability to be an individual with privacy and protection. So, and again, it's personal and it's different in every case. I could see where somebody like Beyonce, it makes more sense for her to have a Julius at all times. But I could see, I live in New York City, you've lived here, you live in Atlanta, you live in LA, you live in Miami, we see celebs and I'm not talking about just known figures. I'm talking about A-listers on the train, walking down the street, walking to Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, getting a smoothie, and they get to do that. So my advice would be, Figure out how important it is to maintain some level of autonomy and privacy, and consistently, that's a key word, consistently move according to that. Move according to that. When it comes to engaging directly with people, whether it's paparazzi or just nosy people in public, I think you got to really kind of figure out how far you're willing to go around that. I personally don't advise a lot of direct contact and engagement. It's one of the things I love about New York. People tend to mind their business, you know, but if somebody decides they don't want to mind their business, then, you know, you kind of have to move accordingly. And I'm not afraid of, you know, availing to law enforcement in those kinds of situations.
Yeah.
I'm really not. And listen, I don't take that lightly, Carlos, because
yeah, I'm with you.
You know, as Black people in America, you know, we know that sometimes when we invite law enforcement, that can be its own problem, right? Seriously, we got to talk about this, family. But ultimately, I'm going to defer that out rather than me sitting up here trying to go toe-to-toe, hand-to-hand contact with an individual off the street.
Yeah.
But that's a me choice, and everybody gets to do that how they want to do it. Yeah.
And that's what I got from it. It's what you said. At the end of the day, do what works for you. But everybody deserves their privacy. Yes, you're a public figure. You deserve your privacy and you deserve your personal space. So yes. I understand that. I get that. Eboni K. Williams, I thank you so much for hopping on this again. And look, your counsel, Baby Liberty. Yes, honey.
This little girl is doing too much. One more thing I did want to also say before we wrap, Carlos, that I love.
Go, please.
That I thought was very much a class act and an important step for her to take because of her responsibility as a megastar. She also asked people to do this lady no harm. She said, do this lady no harm. Yes.
I thought, you know what's so funny? I'm glad you brought that up. That was a takeaway for me too. Like, leave her alone. Don't do her no harm. Justice has been served. Let's all go out and just mind our business. I could not agree more. I thought that was stellar. I really
that was chef's kiss. Not that I wasn't already a Cardi fan, but I walk away from this whole trial even more so because of the person that she showed herself to be throughout this entire thing. Charming, engaging, funny, but when at the end of it all, stood on business, absolutely stood on business, but still with compassion and empathy that this is a human being. Even if she was out here trying to get a quick payday, she played herself. She didn't play me. And so now we're going to move on, and we're not going to harass her. We're not going to harass her family or her children or her parents. We're going to let this lady continue to live. Don't play with Cardi though, but let her live. And anybody else with any bright ideas about coming to play with me, ep around and find out. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect.
Could not agree more. That's honestly my favorite part of the speech because it shows the level of integrity that she had to make sure that this woman also was not going to be, accosted, and insulted as well. So, no, kudos to that. Kudos to you, Eboni. Kudos to you, Baby Liberty. And the best part about this that the Raindrops love, Eboni, before I let you go, they love when they get a chance to see you be a working mom because it's so relatable to the world and my audience. So we love when Baby Liberty makes her
self-known.
Yes, honey, we love it. We love it. So know that it makes the women who are the listeners feel like Ebony's one of us. So kudos to you.
So I love you, Carlos. I love the Raindrops. I love that we get these opportunities to have these conversations rooted in law and pop culture. And also our friendship. So you're the best, my love. Till next time.
Till next time, baby. Love you.
Love you.